everyone, and first and foremost, thank you for joining me in this talk today. In the AWS serverless space, there have been so many new products and features released in 2022 so far that you'd be forgiven for not being able to keep up. In this talk, we will quickly go over the most important new items that you need to know right now. First, let's talk about important features on AWS Lambda that lets you run code without thinking about servers or clusters. Let's talk about larger ephemeral storage for Lambda functions. AWS Lambda functions have always had ephemeral storage available at /tmp in the file system. This was set at 512 MBs for every function, regardless of runtime or memory configurations. We enhanced the feature, and now you can configure ephemeral storage for up to 10 gigs per function instance. There are several common use cases that you can benefit from the expanded ephemeral storage. More temporary space enables more complex ETL jobs to run in Lambda functions. This also means that you can download larger models from Amazon Simple Storage Service or Amazon S3 to /tmp and use this in your inference tasks. Workloads that create PDFs or use headless Chromium or process media also benefit from more ephemeral storage. Some workloads use large zip files from the data providers to initialize local databases. They can now use this without the need for in-memory processing. For workloads processing large TIFF files or satellite images, this makes it easier to use libraries like ImageMagick to perform all the computation in Lambda. The next feature is about Lambda function URLs. Traditionally, microservices architectures were built using Lambda functions fronted by Amazon API Gateway or an application load balancer. But sometimes all you need is a simple way to configure an HTTPS endpoint in front of your function without having to learn, configure, and operate additional services besides Lambda. We announced the general availability of Lambda function URLs, a new feature that lets you add HTTPS endpoints to any Lambda function and optionally configure cross-origin resource sharing or CORS headers. You can generate a new function URL and map it to any function. These are globally unique, are dual stacked, and you can invoke your function through its HTTPS endpoints via web browser, curl, Postman, or any HTTP client. These Lambda function URLs use resource-based policies for security and access control. We also released a few updates for existing runtimes, along with adding 2 new runtime versions. First, AWS Lambda now enables the use of ECMAScript or ES modules in Node.js 14 runtimes. This feature allows you to use dependency libraries that are configured as ES modules or to designate your own functions as ES module code. It provides you the benefits of ES module features like import or export operators, language level support for modules, strict mode by default, and improved static analysis and tree shaking. ES modules also enable top-level await, a feature that can lower cold start latencies when used with provision concurrency. You can also now develop AWS Lambda functions using Node.js 16 runtime. With this release, you can take advantage of new Node.js 16 language features, including toolchain and compiler upgrades, stable timers promises API, regexpressions match indices, faster calls with argument size mismatch, and an updated to V8 release 9.4. You can also use the .NET 6 runtime to build AWS Lambda functions. .NET 6 has many new features for .NET developers, including support for She#10 and F#6. AWS Lambda now also supports attribute-based access control or ABAC, allowing you to control access to Lambda functions within AWS Identity and Access Management IAM using tags. With ABAC, you can scale an access control strategy by setting granular permissions with tags without requiring permission updates for every new user or resource as your organization scales. Moving on to releases for AWS Step Functions, which is our low-code visual workflow service. You wanted better ways to debug workflow executions and analyze the payload as it passes through each state. For standard workflows, the new execution details page allows you to inspect executions using 3 different view types: graph view, table view, and event view. It has a multi-level navigation enhancements for analyzing the map state feature, the ability to search execution history based on unique attributes and improved events, and table navigation with filtering, sorting, and pagination. Check it out the next time you need to debug a standard workflow via the console. And of course, do let know if you have any enhancements that you think would be useful. The next feature is the ability to run AWS Step Functions in your own development environment. AWS Step Functions Local is a downloadable version of Step Functions that lets you develop and test applications using a version of Step Functions running in your own development environment. This local version of Step Functions can invoke AWS Lambda functions both in AWS and while running locally. You can also coordinate other supported AWS services if you have the need for it. AWS Step Functions Local is available as a jar package or a self-contained Docker image that runs on Microsoft Windows, Linux, Mac OS, and other platforms that support Java or Docker. Finally, let's talk about some important announcements across other different serverless services. With that, let's pick up on Amazon DynamoDB. So Amazon DynamoDB increased the default quota for the number of tables per AWS account per region from 256 to 2,500 tables. So this is a 10x jump of the number of tables that you can configure in one region within your one AWS account. Amazon Aurora Serverless v2 is also globally available now. So for starters, Amazon Aurora Serverless v2 scales instantly, delivering up to 90% cost savings compared to when used and configured for peak capacity. AWS AppSync also added support for custom response headers to GraphQL operations. Use them if you have the need for it. Amazon Simple Notification Service, or Amazon SNS, also added support for attribute-based access controls, just like AWS Lambda. It can also now integrate with Amazon Cognito user pools within the same region for your authentication and authorization needs. AWS Glue Job Studio notebooks are also GA now. So these are interactive notebook-based job authoring for your AWS Glue jobs. And finally, Amazon Event Bridge added support for global endpoints for automatic failover and recovery across regions. Use this to meet your DR requirements. I just mentioned the most important new items that you need to know right now. For an exhaustive list, visit our What's New with AWS page for a detailed description of all the 2022 launches across all our services. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach me out via the LinkedIn profile of mine that I've shared below. I'm excited to know about all the wonders that you will create with all these feature enhancements that we released in 2022 till now. But to note that there are more coming based on the feedback that you have provided. So I humbly request to give us that feedback to help enhance the services. Thank you for your time today, and keep on listening to the enlightening talks that are planned throughout today. Have a great learning session. Bye for now.